Well, I am joined by an esteemed panel here. We're going to go through and do some introductions. My name is Greg Petrossian. I'm at DataStax. I lead the global relationship between DataStax and Microsoft. I've been a longtime proponent of Fabric. I lead the Fabric user group in Portland, as well as the Power Platform user group and Azure user group. And I'm so thrilled to see the turnout here and the Seattle data, AI, and security group and how awesome this community is thriving. All right, so I will let Treb introduce himself.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Treb Gatte. Yes, that's a real name. Yes, can you tell I'm from South Louisiana? I can still talk like that if you like, but nobody would understand me. I am CEO of a company called Marquee Insights here in Bellevue. We were one of the first 20 Power BI partners back when Power BI came out. I'm also one of 4 people worldwide designated as a data platform and AI platform. So MVP. So basically, I am where the data comes together to feed to AI. So if you have questions about Fabric or Azure AI, I'm your guy.
I'm Sanjay Raut. I'm part of Fabric product group, part of Fabric customer advisory team. We call it as a CAT, kind of being a bridge between the enterprise customers adopting Fabric with their complex implementations and working with product group, PMs, engineering to help them unblock, as well as provide the necessary feedback so that they can reprioritize their roadmap. So that's me.
Awesome. I'm Dan Erasmus. I'm from an organization called Omnidata, and I am currently holding the role of Chief Commercial Officer, but really come from probably the best part of the last about 30 years worth of consulting in the Microsoft data analytics and AI space. Everything from the deep core technical side of things, starting off with the old school DTS, and now currently finding myself in the role of really linking business and technology together. So yeah, really happy to be here, Greg. Thanks very much. And thanks all of the other panelists.
Yes, so our panelists here, we're here to talk about real world implementations of Fabric. We know we've seen a lot of demos, we've seen Fabric on slides. Well, what about Fabric in the real world with real world use cases? That's what we want to dive into. Now, before we do, last week was Build. Who went to Build last week? Anybody check in from virtual world? Okay, well, at Build, there was tons of announcements. And we could see everything was about pretty much AI and agents. Now, what about Fabric? Like, how does that play into Microsoft's grand vision of co-piloting everything? Well, I asked Copilot to summarize for me all the Build announcements and tell me, okay, of the highest importance, what do you think was the most important Fabric-related announcement? Of course, Copilot had to say, well, all the Copilot enhancements. Copilot in Power BI, Copilot.
No bias there whatsoever.
Yeah, not surprising. Copilot working with Fabric data agents, and then of course Copilot for pipelines. You know, I go and ask Perplexity the same thing, and it found the importance of mirroring. I mean, that's mirroring and shortcuts, of course, bring the data estate together for Fabric. So 2 different LLMs, 2 different answers, but I think between those 2 things, that's what I saw was really important. But I'd love to ask the panelists, what was the big aha moment that you guys thought came from Build?
Yeah, sure thing. I think for me, if I look at where we are with Fabric and the evolution that the product's seen over the last several years, the piece for me, I think that is for all of us, I think most of us are probably data professionals in the audience here today. I think the piece that for me is becoming more and more apparent, and certainly was highlighted at FabCon a few months ago when we were there, and really echoed again at Build, is security, security, security. And how do we bring security and simplify security in the context of Fabric? Of course, we all love talking about AI. We all love talking about the new pieces of technology that goes into it. But when we're looking at real world implementations of Fabric, one of the key questions that I get asked almost every single day by customers is, how are we going to manage security end to end in this world where we have data, whether it's real-time intelligence, whether it's data that's batch-based driven that's coming in, our semantic models, our reports, AI on top of that. how are we managing security around all of that? And so for me, some of those exciting announcements at Build and most definitely at FabCon were related to security.
Nice. And specifically like Purview and
yeah, the Purview
data
side of it,
sensitivity.
I really love the One Lake security component that was
OneLake
announced
security.
at Fabric
Yeah.
at FabCon. That I think is going to simplify everybody's jobs dramatically. And so as the security element becomes more and more top of mind for every single tech professional, for every single data professional, I think the more work and effort that Microsoft puts into security, it's going to make our lives that much easier when we get to real world implementations of Fabric.
Completely agree.
For me, again, I'm also not going to talk about agent because there is a lot which is talked about agent. There is agentic web, there is data agent, there is agent for everything. But really, when you go to enterprises and talk about Fabric and adoption for Fabric, right, we do see there are a couple of challenges that customers who are mainly coming from the legacy environment are facing. A lot of them still use SQL servers. You know the SQL Server 2016, 2012.
Mostly
Right?
2012.
Yeah. So one of the important announcement that I see is really important is mirroring SQL Server to Fabric. Exactly. And right from SQL Server 2016 to 2025, which is the recent announcement also in Build, right?
Yeah.
So
you
that was a great thing. Yeah.
So you were agreeing with Perplexity's answer of
oh. And then the other one, which is more because I'm from the Power BI background as well, is translytical task flows.
Yes.
So
how do you pronounce that?
How it is transactional plus analytical. So
translytical.
Yeah. So translytical task flows, which allows you to take actions and do a write back from Power BI reports directly into your database. How many of you are in Power BI and how many have tried to do, hey, it would have been great if I could just go ahead and change this particular parameter and see that result right away, right? And that's what translytical, it kind of opens up, plethora of opportunities in this particular space.
Love that. Thank you for your perspective. Mr. Treb.
I'm going to agree with Perplexity here. And I have a reason for this. How many of you use SharePoint list as a data source today for reporting? Oh, come on.
Oh, yeah.
Better than that.
Come on.
Got that SharePoint list in the back that's managing operational data.
All your Power Apps.
All your Power Apps, all that stuff. Well, so here's the thing. Why is mirroring important? What we're doing with AI is we have the data estate. You've heard Arun talk about this. This is all of our structured data. And then perhaps you've been to a conference where you've heard Jeff Teeper talk about the content estate, which is your Office 365 data, which happens to be 72% of your organization's data, okay? We're trying to bring these two together for the first time so that Copilot, Azure agents, and all that can talk to it. So what did mirroring give us? It gave us the ability to pull in Dataverse. It pulled in SQL Server. We can already get to the documents now. If we could just get those SharePoint lists in the Fabric with mirroring, I'd be a happy camper. Because now I only have two places to manage my content and also to pull that. So if I'm building my own agents using Azure Agent Service, which I'm a very big fan of, then I can use Azure AI Search to get to everything. Makes my life a lot easier, makes your life a lot easier. So there was a lot of announcements. God knows if we had made it a drinking game out of if you drank every time you heard agent, you would have died in 10 minutes. So let's not do that. But mirroring, pay attention to what's going on there. This is really the core bedrock that we need to really enable that AI vision.
Completely agree with you, Treb. All right, so from build, let's move on into the actual point of this whole panel, which is the real world implementation. So let's talk about some of the good, the bad, and the ugly, some of the early impressions of Fabric. Dan, I'd love to kick it off with you. When you first started implementing Microsoft Fabric, which you guys have been there probably since the very beginnings of Fabric and Preview, what surprised you, either positively or negatively?
Yeah, that's a
big question.
The journey's been long, right? I think for us, we were very lucky and very fortunate right from the get-go as an organization. We were working with a very large enterprise customer, and Microsoft was busy with this whole concept that they called back in the day Project Trident. And I don't know if any of you guys will know that code name. There we go. There we go. So that was the original code name for Fabric. So we were lucky enough to be on the journey with Fabric almost right from the get-go. And when it started going GA, we were able to take a lot of the knowledge, a lot of the learnings that we've had from the kind of pre-release of Fabric and roll that into really well-structured rollout plans that we had for any of our engagements. So we've got our own approach towards it. We know what works, and I think that aspect of it, that early experience, has really helped us to land that. Now, when we're talking about good, bad, and ugly in this sense, let me err towards the good side rather. I think we're in the house here, so let's err towards the good side. Of course, the integration and the work that was done in building the pipelines and adding that into Fabric and making this the whole user experience that much more simplified. I think that was one of the key aspects that for us helped in the adoption of both our technical teams when that adoption starts happening. So critically important, obviously, to have your technical teams on board, but also it helped customer adoption of the tool because it was actually a whole lot simpler than going to multiple different technology stacks.
So ease of use was the
ease
big
of use. Yeah, I think that's probably a good way to summarize it.
Awesome. So when you're actually implementing, the ease of use, was something that you like really glommed onto.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. How about you, Sanjay?
So the good, the bad, the ugly. The good, I think you have already covered. So did you pick bad for me?
I'm not setting you guys up at all.
No, I'll take a stab at it. So basically, we as a product group, I'm proud of being product group for Fabric, and
Yes.
the Trident has been a tremendous journey. Just a small story where we had this. How many of you have worked with data marts? That was in preview well before the Trident had started, right? And just to give an insights, that data mart was one of the starting point for Trident, right? And that's where things started clicking. Hey, not why only Power BI, or how can I make it simpler for my users to use data from Power BI, from reports, but at the same time also allow them to query that data using SQL, and then have that one single copy. That's where the entire concept of one copy, one lake started coming into life, right? So while we have done that and have achieved a lot of things in that, there were certain things that kind of fall through the crack, if I may say, which is one of those, which was most importantly was security part, right? Yeah. Where we did get onto security, we are getting onto it better, but then it take a little bit of time for us to get into that rhythm of getting a more granular security, if I may say, right? Which is what generally is perceived with every enterprise customers, and that's where, if you see now, and if you look at the recent announcements on security side, where one of those is workspace level private link, which is going to allow you to have your data behind private link within a workspace and isolate that particular workspace. At the same time, allow you to have outbound security. Those are the things that are coming up very soon, which is there in the Fabric roadmap. So anybody who wants to know what is coming in Fabric, go to aka.ms/Fabric roadmap. There is an app which tells you what is coming, which feature is coming in which quarter of which year. So help with that, help yourself. aka.ms/Fabric roadmap.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned that. That was also one of the big announcements from Build, was the Fabric roadmap tool.
Yeah.
Definitely use it. And I guess we're hearing a lot of echoes around security. I mean, private link, huge important thing for enterprises, right? So thank you. Mr. Treb, what do you think?
The good, the bad, and the ugly. That's an interesting way to put it. So the good, my goodness, so much integration work just went away. I mean, technically,
Yeah.
this is really what Fabric helped us with. It's like, oh, you need an event house. Boom. You need a data warehouse. Boom. I mean, it's just amazing that you can do this so quickly. Now, the bad. For those of you who are in the Power BI community, raise your hands. Now, remember to alternate arms. We don't want OSHA getting on us about, workplace injury here. So make sure you alternate. The transition was not as well handled as it could have been, because all of a sudden one day this Fabric logo showed up, and all of a sudden we became Fabric user groups.
Yeah.
And I got a phone call about 10 minutes after that happened from one of my customers, and they're going, "What's this Fabric thing?" So instead of a gradual, it was a rip and replace. And I think we shocked the Power BI market there for a while, and we confused everybody. I think we've gotten past that, but it's taken us a while to get there. Now, the ugly part of this is something if you've been around me, you know I've been talking about this for a while. For those of you who are old enough to remember when cell companies used to charge us by the minute and charge us by the text, this is where we are today with the pricing models for both Fabric and AI. We don't have pricing models designed for the CFO. We have it designed for IT admin. And this is why when we get the question, how much is this going to cost? We go, I don't know. We're going to get there. We're going to get, I think, some more reasonably understandable models, and we definitely got more tools, but they're still not designed for the CFO. To me, that's the ugliest part of this, because that's our biggest friction to getting adoption.
Yep. Pricing is definitely a hard point. Thank you for being daring and going through the spectrum for me, Treb.
Yeah.
Okay.
Come on, G. We'll go away. It's just us.
Yeah, it's just us,
Nobody's
just
recording.
between friends, right? Now, let's transition to best practices. Sanjay, I would love for you to kick this one off. Based on your experience in Power Cat team, and this, you live and breathe this, right? What are the top best practices that you would tell the audience that are must-dos for teams that are getting into Microsoft Fabric?
The first thing I'll say is start familiarizing yourself with Fabric, right? The concept on the lake house, the warehouse, and the event house, then the differences between those, how those are interacting with us. There is a whole lot of learn module that helps you ramp up with your Fabric, right? There are certifications that are there. Somebody was asking, I think you were asking about, hey, I'm doing Power BI. Should I be just leaving Power BI and going to Fabric? I'm like, no, you don't need to. If you are trying to do your, PL 300 certification, go do that. And then do your PL 600 certification, which allows you to know more on Fabric and go deeper with Power BI as well. So you start ramping up slowly within Fabric. Other thing that you probably want to do is start small, right?
Yes,
I've seen within enterprises, this is the common pitfall that all enterprises go into. Hey, this is the Fabric. Okay, this is a new thing. Let's start. This is one of the top most complex data landscape that I have, and I want to bring it into Fabric, right? Don't start there. I would say start small and keep it iterative. Start small. Take the smallest MVP possible. Get that to work, and then start increasing it slowly and steadily on top of that. So those are the two key things. I mean, there are a lot of best practices which are there with respect to Power BI or with Fabric as well, provided there is an adoption guide, by the way. So if you go to AKA, I know you will see I'm talking a lot of AKA.ms, but these are some of the quick things that you should be looking at for your knowledge with Fabric. aka.ms/PBI guidance. I know I'm talking about PBI guidance, but there is a Fabric adoption guidance, which is a good document, talks about how enterprises should adopt Fabric, right? And gives all different personas. Work with across the personas. Fabric is not for just report authors, or Fabric is not just for the data engineers, right? It is a collaboration that you have to do within that space, that workspace that you have. So I think that's where you should be starting.
Awesome. Start small. Love that. A lot of aka.ms bookmarks, hopefully for everybody in the audience. And so this whole idea of, hey, enterprise, just lift and shift, right? No, you have to really think about re-architecting for Fabric, right? Re-architecting for how you're using your FSQs. So Love that. Love that perspective.
Take a little bit longer, 6 weeks.
Yeah. How about Dan? Would any best practices that you like typically, or your like top three when you're working with customers?
Yeah, certainly when we're looking at rolling out Fabric for a customer and again, within the context of a real world implementation, I've got to actually agree the Fabric adoption guide that Microsoft's put out there, whatever the AKA is,
ms/PBI guidance.
Listen to this, man. It really is a phenomenal resource to use to help with the adoption of Fabric in your organization. It helps you to really just build a conceptual understanding of the various different user groups that you're going to have, whether that be report authors, whether that be data engineers, and helping to create a structure within the organization that'll help you to address challenges and questions that are going to come from various different parts of your organization. So really, I think that's a really good starting point when you get to the adoption piece. Another piece that we found really successful and that we've built out as a really successful kind of best practice approach towards it is we've defined how and where data needs to be landed as a technical team. My technical teams in the organization have built their own best practices process. Now, of course, when we look at it, I look at it from a consulting perspective, and of course, all organizations have different needs and desires when it comes to data. But when you try and build something, at least try and create something that is somewhat repeatable, so that when you go back to maintenance and management of the solution, you're not sitting in a scenario where, at one point we did it like this, and then it jumped to another way in which we did it. So whether you go from, hopefully not data flows Gen 2, maybe you go to notebooks, make sure that you follow the same pattern across the board. So sit down really and plan from an engineering and implementation perspective. How do I want my data to flow into my solution, and figure that out really carefully up front, because it makes it so much easier to manage and maintain something going forward. We tend to struggle with, there's a shiny new object, right? It's not necessary to all the time go to the shiny new object or the shiny new feature that's been released. Make sure that you have a really well-structured pattern.
So don't fall into the FOMO. Repeatable patterns.
FOMO, repeatable patterns.
Yeah, build your own framework. Yeah. Way to go. How about you, Treb? What do you think?
So at the end of the day, all of this is a change management problem that you have to address. One of the best practices I would suggest is that you look for the pain. Look for the pain in your org. One of the easiest places to find it, remember those SharePoint lists I was talking about? Those are painful, but that's not where most of the pain is. It's those folks who have CSV files in SharePoint folders, and they're pulling them together with Power BI. I just had somebody who had 157 CSV files that they were using Power Query to try to pull together, and they were complaining how slow it was. Imagine their face when you put all of that into the lake, and voila, it just works. It's fast. Because at the end of the day, you need raving fans to help push this forward. Otherwise, it's seen as a tax. The DBA, they're probably pretty okay. They're not hurting. They would like it better, but they're not like complaining. The business, however, is struggling. So look beyond your normal structured data. Look at that semi-structured, unstructured boundary, the outlands, if you will, outside the data center, because Fabric will allow you to support that so much better, so much easier, and so much more securely than what we've got today. So just expand your view a little bit more.
So expand your horizons.
Yeah.
Just want to add to that, don't look at your lake house as a dumping ground. So you don't want to have everything just dumped into lake house and voila, everything will start working.
That's
right?
your point. I love that.
But spend some time on the way you would have spent on, shaping up your data, right? How you would have done. Those concepts does not go away, the concepts with respect to any data warehousing, process or any lakehouse process does not go away. The bronze, silver, medallion architecture, those concepts does not go away. Use that, right? And make use of those. Just instead of expecting, try not to be in the misconception that, yeah, once I put it into there, everything will just magically start working. No.
Yeah. Yeah, and these patterns have stood the test of time, right? So lean into those patterns that, the medallion architecture especially, and be thoughtful about how you're bringing these tools together and how you're implementing your lakehouse.
Fabric eases it, but it does not build it for you.
Oh,
You
no.
still have to build your medallion architecture.
It's not magic. It's just, you
It's
still have to put in that
magic wand, but it's not magic,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
But I will say the ingestion is usually your biggest problem that you're trying to address because you're getting in stuff through email, FTP. My goodness, I have one customer who still has a fax server. I kid you not, 1990 called. But anyway, but all of these things you need to manage as you bring stuff into Fabric. So it's another place to take a good hard look at.
Yeah, and there's so many options to ingestion, right? And so figuring out which one of these options make the most sense for your use case, for the velocity of your data, again, being thoughtful.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to transition back to what we were talking about around security. So compliance and security, that is a number one thing customers are always asking about. And I work a lot with regulated industries and regulated industry customers. And I know for those in the audience that are thinking, well, how does Microsoft Fabric address certain compliance requirements around security? And Sanjay, I'm going to have you start on this one. Things like HIPAA, high trust, ISO certs.
All these are compliant.
Yes.
Honestly. So there is, if you look at, and I think Arun was talking about this in the morning also in the context of some compliance discussions that happened for the fintech industry, right? So, 𝗪𝗁𝒃, which is one of the big financial organization, they are adopting Fabric as we speak, and they're adopting it big, right? They do have their own compliances, being London Stock Exchange Group, right? Or if you look at the health sector, which is Epic, which is the leading, organization in health sector that is using all those MyChart and all those different applications in medical sector, right? They are adopting to Fabric. So today, if I may talk about, Fabric is already compliant with HIPAA, with ISO certifications that are there, with PCI, which was the most recent one, PCI DSS, and then high trust certification. So most of those already, I think, are, if you go to that security white paper that Arun was talking about in the morning, go search for Fabric security white paper, and you should be able to hit to that. It has all the details on what all compliances today, till date, we have completed. And the other things on the security side, if I may talk about what is coming, one is the, for organizations like this, there is a customer managed key encryption, which is coming up in preview very soon, right? So that's gonna help enterprises keep their data encrypted as they keep it. And then there is also combined with that is the outbound, data security. That's another thing that is
private endpoint.
The private endpoint, the trusted connections, the Azure trusted connections. So make combination of these, use these, the service principal support that we have today for Fabric in most of the workloads is going to help you with this, this entire adoption.
So Fabric's coming for the enterprise. I think that's one resounding theme we are seeing.
That's right.
And it's all just going to work, right? That's one beautiful thing.
Yeah. So it is not just a toy, but it is something that large enterprises are adopting as well. But at the same time, it is not enterprise only kind of a thing, quote unquote, right? So even if there is a startup which want to start small, they can start at F2 capacity or F4 capacity. F2 would be, too low, I would say, honestly. F2 is there, but just because, F2 was the lowest one that we could start. So that's where it is. But honestly speaking about, in a realistic way, a developer can start with a F4 or F8 capacity and try and, do his own things in a standalone sandbox environment on Azure.
That's awesome. How How about you, Treb? What are the things around security that you've been running into or working
Well,
with?
so many people, it's like they know they need security, and then they see the cost, and I get pushback. Now, I did some research into this, and it's like, what's the problem and why do I care? A single data leak, on average today, cost $5.01 million in resulting legal fees.
Yowza.
One. Okay. I had one customer who had a clerk who accidentally mailed complete records to a vendor who was not authorized to have those. Let the lawsuits begin. And we don't want to have this conversation after the fact. But to me, it's like we have all these wonderful tools. We have Purview, we have, and all the stuff that's built in. But the biggest problem I'm running into is convincing companies they need it before they need it. And frankly, the hacking attacks are getting bigger, badder. They're AI enabled now, just like everything else.
Everywhere.
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 Bad guys are getting smarter. So this is nothing to play with.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. When you think of what we have at our disposal right now in terms of technology, we're not the only. I look at us as
We're the good
building.
guys.
We're the good guys.
I-
Doing the good
I
guy
like that.
thing.
We're the good guys, right? So we're trying to make sure that our enterprises are secure. We're trying to make sure that we always plan and stay ahead of things. But just as much as what we are planning, just as much as what we are strategizing, the other side of the coin is also doing that. And think about that way up front. I think for any organization, I 100% agree with that. People are so hesitant to take those steps around security. Yes, there's a price tag associated with that, but the price tag, if you don't do it, is even bigger. It's that almost like that age-old adage of if you want to see how expensive something can be, try to get someone that's an amateur to do it. You're going to end up with a very expensive scenario.
Yeah. So being thoughtful really includes going security first in everything you do,
Yeah.
whether it's AI or BI, doesn't matter, right?
Right from planning stage, where
Yeah,
you
right
can
from
think
planning
about
stage.
what kind of security that I want to have for my enterprise application or enterprise report that I'm going to implement or solution that I'm going to.
Yeah.
Well, the other cost too is, insurance has gone up. Like I own my own company. I get those bills. I know what they look like.
Oh,
You
yeah.
have a breach, your rates just went up. Just like if you had a car accident. You try to work with certain companies, like we're a Microsoft vendor. They require an audit. You work with a bank, they require an audit. You want to make sure you pass those on the first shot, and you've got to have these security measures in place. In fact, if you're leading them, if you're better than them, it's even better.
And in some insurance, actually, if you go through their audits, you can actually get discounts
Yeah.
because they know you've put you've put those security controls in place that hopefully they don't need to go pay out that $5 million ransomware attack.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, let's move on to one of the most exciting topics, I think, which we've all heard a lot of, which is the era of agents. Right. We've heard a lot about agents. So let's talk about real world, right? Like, where are we seeing actual real world use of agents? I know Fabric Data Agent itself is in preview. It's early. We saw it transition from Fabric AI Skills. Where are you seeing, Treb, the true like real world implementations of agents or just AI in general?
So one of the things that we're seeing, and just give you a little perspective. So we shipped a template as part of the Azure Agent Service GA that happened at Build. We're one of 5 companies that did that. And what we shipped was a very simple agent. It's basically, it goes out and it gets all of the AI announcements from the last 24 hours and summarizes them so I don't spend 45 minutes a day doing the same thing. And we actually have a version that talks to a data agent, so it can talk to ADO or whatever systems you have in the back end and aggregate all this. So where we're seeing agents is not in optimizing the stuff we do already. It's enabling the stuff that we could never do before.
Love that.
So we have agents now that are doing medical record evaluation and processing. We have one client, they were doing 200 documents a day manually. As of yesterday, they were doing 1,535 documents
Wow.
a day, 24/7. And these
Wow.
documents sizes average 418 pages.
Wow.
These are not small documents, but this is the power of agents. We're continuing to add to this because they're finding, okay, we did this, now we're going to the next. And agents allows you to dynamically extend and create more flexible workflows. So if you haven't, data agents is how you feed your structured data in there. Azure AI Search is how you feed your unstructured data in there, your RAG processes. And how you bring this together, you can choose Copilot Studio. I don't have anything against Copilot Studio. Beth, where are you? But I'm more comfortable with Azure Agent Service because it gives you full flexibility. I can use any of the 10,000 models that are in the model catalog to optimize. And if you use the model selector, it'll do it for you automatically. So there's a lot more capabilities than we've had ever before.
Love that.
For me, there was one question that had come up during the discussion here during the lunchtime as to, hey, we see this particular agent, this agent, that. How do you see, overall Fabric is working with all these agents, and why should we have this data agent and stuff like that? So some of the things. If you are pro, if you want to, it really depends on where exactly you want to showcase your data, or where do you want to meet your business user, right? If you want to meet your business user in an application, then AI Foundry is the right place to start, because that's where you will be able to then start integrating all these different agents together along with the data agent, right? And each agent is kind of getting grounded in their own space. So if I'm talking about data agent, it's not one data agent. There are multiple data agents that are there. Each one is working its own specialty, thinking of like, HR agent or manufacturing agent. And then all those things coming together through that application for your end user, for your business user to use, is where you can see all this getting connected, and that agentic web, what we talked about, what Satya talked about in Build, is coming into
NL
reality.
web.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we have 5 minutes left, and I would love to get questions from the audience if we've got some time. We've got a wealth of knowledge and experience here. If we can get maybe a question or two from the audience. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for the great discussion. I have two questions for the panel. I think first one is on the, so we talked about the change management, right? So let's say for any mature company which has been using a tech stack, best of the breed, and if they have to start trying Fabric, what would you think would be a good place to start? Like to start getting the benefits of the Fabric before they make the full migration, right?
Sure. So where to start?
The business problem. Like, don't start with the tech. You start with the tech, you've already lost half your audience.
Never start with the tech.
To me, and again, that's why I say, look for the pain. Look for the thing that everybody's going to go, yes, we need to address that.
Yeah, I was just curious from your own experiences. Like there is a one lake, there is analytical capabilities, real time.
Yeah.
There are semantic capabilities.
Real time is growing like
Data
crazy.
Foundry. So what would be a good place to start and get?
What is the business problem that you are trying to solve for your organization?
Yes.
That's the first question that even I will ask. Okay. Now, talking about the technology, there are technologies which are there, right? I mean, if you're already working with your Databricks or you're working with Snowflake, you have things like shortcut, mirroring to get that data together in one particular place. If you're multi-cloud environment with AWS and GCP and you want to bring that data virtualized within one lake, you can do that using shortcut, right? And think about shortcut for file-based sources and mirroring for structured sources which are proprietary. And then once you have that, you can do whatever you want to, depending on what is your skill set. If your skill set is SQL, you use SQL for querying to that. If your skill set is, Spark, you can even build your own Spark, pipelines on top of that. But that really depends on what's the business case that you're trying to solve.
I want to add just one perspective to that. I 100% agree with both of these gentlemen. If we were to start from scratch and we said, oh, we want to now implement Fabric, what's the challenge that we're trying to solve? There is the other side of the coin as well, which is modernization of existing technology, right? Modernization of your Synapse environment, modernization of any of the, even modernization from other platforms onto the Microsoft stack. I think that part of it is something that we see happening more and more often, where customers realize that legacy, and it's not even nearly legacy technology when we're talking about something like Synapse, right? But they want to be able to take advantage of some of the investments that Microsoft have made in the platform built like Fabric. And so that approach then means that so much of what you've built in the legacy technology stack, there's a lot of ways in which you can simplify and streamline bringing that into a Fabric environment. So for instance, if you have a scenario where you use Synapse Spark pools and notebooks to build data transformations, some of that can be migrated across. Yes, there is going to be necessary modifications to that code that needs to be made to be able to run on the Spark engine for Fabric. But when you're looking at a project like that, there's some pieces that you can accelerate and put into the hands of the users, the business end users, ultimately much quicker than others. And so I think it's weighing up, and really, Greg mentioned something earlier that I want to just go back to, is being thoughtful about the approach that you have. There's a lot of modernization that needs to happen, right? There's a lot of people that's sitting on older versions of technology. Thinking about being thoughtful about how we bring that into the new era to take advantage of the investment Microsoft's made in Fabric and continue making in Fabric is something that we do all the time as well. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. So remember, zoom out and remember why you are going to be implementing or doing the implementation. I know we're at time. I would really like to thank the panelists for their awesome experience, knowledge, and you guys have a great rest of your Fabric tour. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.